Greetings, I'm Jed Schlackman, and I work as a holistic counselor as well as an energy healer and hypnotherapist. For this video, I would like to speak about the topic of shame and how pervasive that is in human psychology and the different issues that people may express or exhibit in their lives, and which would be encountered when you're doing healing work or therapy. Essentially, there's a common pattern of denial or avoidance of shame, of people trying to not feel shame, to not speak about shame or things they felt shame about. So it's as though people are keeping secret or covering up this part of their life experience that they carry shame from, and that has some pathological consequences. It can lead to a lot of self-destructive type behaviors, addictions, and other patterns. It can also lead to, we could call, sociopathic type behaviors that are very narcissistic or predatory, things that are harmful to other people. So if you don't face and process and heal the shame, it's likely to be expressed in either or both of those directions, doing things that are harmful or destructive to yourself in your own life, or acting in ways that are abusive or harmful to others. I'll explain more about how those different patterns manifest, and also what are the solutions. What can we do to start to face and heal pain and shame so that we can be fully present in our lives, be mindful of how we're living, doing things that are for both our own benefit and well-being, and respecting the well-being of others. If you think back to experiences in your own life, you can likely encounter or recover some memories of things that happened where you felt in some way ashamed, and that shame can be from an internal source or an external trigger or stimulus. As an example, as a child, you may have your peers bullying or teasing you, saying negative, rude things about you, and you feel ashamed as they make those statements and tease you and try to make you feel bad about yourself. So they're, in a way, manipulating you to get a reaction. They're trying to entertain themselves at your expense, or they're trying to exercise their power to manipulate your emotional state. Bullies are often doing that, and it's often a kind of vicious cycle where someone did that to them, and then they're doing it to other people to experience the other side of that role, being both the victim and perpetrator of those types of abuse. And this is where this shame cycle starts to get perpetuated. The person who experiences shame, it's an unpleasant, painful type of feeling, so naturally people don't want to feel or experience that feeling or that emotional state, and they'll find ways to avoid it for the future. So one way is to use some form of denial to kind of dissociate from that experience or memory, to kind of pretend as though it didn't happen, to deny your own experience. Another approach that the psyche can apply to try to protect itself to avoid shame is to actually normalize or embrace that type of abusive behavior and become the one who's actually inflicting that abuse and shame on other people. So that's the narcissistic type of tendency, where the person acts like they're super tough, where they don't have compassion or empathy. They'll just boldly and brazenly say things or do things that are hurtful to other people, and it's almost as though they're proving to themselves that they can do these things and not feel shame. Sometimes people have acted in a certain way at a particular time in their life where they did something hurtful to other people and they naturally do feel some guilt or shame about that. They don't like how they feel. They don't want to feel that shame or guilt. So they look for some way to shift their way of thinking about those behaviors so that they're no longer feeling guilty or ashamed of it. And that can lead to those narcissistic patterns where the person seeks to not have empathy for others, to tell themselves that they're kind of liberated from empathy, from having to think about how other people are feeling, that they can just say or do whatever they want and not have to worry about consequences and not have to be concerned or afraid that they're going to feel ashamed of what they're doing. So it's this way of suppressing or repressing, denying our natural empathy as spiritual beings, as human beings. It's really truly innate and natural to have a feeling of our connection to others, to be able to empathize, to consider when we do something how other people might feel from our action. That's a way to maintain balance in a sense, so that we don't act completely recklessly, so that we don't do things that are destructive to our community, that hurt other people, which will at some point eventually come back to be returned to us. If you're inflicting harm on others, eventually someone else is going to inflict harm on you, because creation is showing us both sides of these dynamics, of these experiences. So if you're an abuser, you're going to experience being abused as well, to have that wholeness or balance. So if we think about shame, it's something that we need to be able to feel at least temporarily for our own psychological and spiritual well-being. It's not something that's desirable to remain stuck in, to continue in that state, in that level of energy. If you remain in the state of shame, then you're naturally going to recreate, to quote-unquote attract more experiences that would reinforce that feeling or state. So if you're feeling this shame within yourself, this sense of being bad, of having low self-worth, of feeling that you deserve to be punished or judged, if you carry that feeling within you, then you're going to continue to encounter more situations and circumstances that would appear to reinforce that feeling or belief that you have, more situations where something causes you to feel low about yourself, to feel unworthy, to feel bad or ashamed. So if we don't want to continue that cycle, we want to face the shame that we've experienced already, so we can find a way to reprocess things, to create a different narrative, a different story about ourselves, a different way of thinking about those experiences so that we can release them, we can let them go, we can accept whatever happened, whether we did something we feel ashamed of or someone did something to us that made us feel in some way damaged or defective, that made us feel ashamed, to transcend that, to reconnect with our core self, with our innate self-worth, where we don't have to look down on ourselves. We don't have to be upset or angry with other people anymore for what they may have said or done. We can release it. In a sense, it could be seen as a process of forgiveness, forgiving other people for their actions in the past, forgiving ourselves for our own action or inaction in the past, so we can actually let that go, not getting stuck in that reality, not stuck in that shame, not stuck in any beliefs we built up about ourselves in reaction to those experiences, to really refresh and renew ourselves so we can be in the present, we can be empowered, we can be embodied here and now, able to live and enjoy our life without that negative imprint where we feel there's something bad or wrong with us. If we don't acknowledge those feelings, if we don't accept that something unpleasant happened and we felt ashamed about it, then we're not giving ourselves the opportunity to heal. So if you're stuck in some form of denial and avoidance, then you're not able to go through that emotion and release it. You're continually using your energy to actually avoid the emotion, and it's kind of a trap. Many people use addictions to soothe their emotions, to deny what they're experiencing or feeling, and that feeds into the cycle because for a moment you're escaping your feelings with the addictive drug or behavior, then that wears off, of course, it's only temporary, and now you have feelings of shame or regret about engaging in that addiction. So that addiction might have led you to neglect a responsibility, to act in some way that interfered with your own well-being, that sabotaged your own goals in life, or that caused some type of pain or discomfort to people in your environment. So now that might be added on to the previous shame that you were carrying. So you're just building up more shame, and then feeling that shame, you want to escape from it, you go use a drug or drink or gamble or whatever momentarily takes you out of that feeling, and this cycle just keeps spiraling. You go further and further into that path of denial and avoidance, and things start to become even more destructive. So that's the self-destructive type of path. I mentioned that there's the narcissistic type of path where you're creating a lot of harm or havoc in other people's lives, and that can go pretty deep and spiral pretty far as well, where people engage in more and more harmful or destructive behaviors toward other people. It's like they're testing how far they can go without feeling empathy. Can you criticize and verbally attack someone and not feel ashamed about it? Can you physically abuse someone and not feel ashamed about it? Can you steal from someone, not feeling ashamed? Sexually assault someone and not feel ashamed? Would someone be able to murder someone and not feel ashamed? You can see that could just spiral deeper and darker. if the person doesn't turn around and have an intention to actually get to the root of their issue, of their pattern, to actually accept that they've done things that are shameful, things that spiritually we're naturally going to feel that shame or regret about, but then that's an opportunity to learn to forgive ourselves, to accept what's happened, but also to accept that everything in life is temporary. We're continuing to transform. Our present identity doesn't have to be attached to our past identity. We can recreate or rebirth ourselves each day in any moment. And if we look at it from a broader spiritual perspective, from the soul point of view, our soul can be having thousands of incarnations of lifetimes. The soul is actually experiencing pretty much every possible role, every possible type of action or behavior. So our souls in the human life experiences are experiencing doing many things that we would look upon as positive, as kind, as loving and humanitarian, as well as things that are hurtful, things that are abusive and destructive. We're experiencing all of it, playing both roles, and everyone, every human being is going through that same process. So you're ultimately, in that sense, not better or worse than anyone else. You're just focusing on who you aspire to be in the present moment, in the here and now. You can't change who you were in the past, whether it's the past in this lifetime or another lifetime. You're not directly controlling or changing your future. You're only able to choose here in this present moment what you're focusing your energy and attention on, what action you're going to take, how are you going to treat yourself and treat other people. And you can do that letting go of the baggage or the memory of anything that's occurred before. You don't have to carry shame from the past, but if you haven't faced whatever shame you might have felt in the past and made peace with that or released that, then it's still going to impact you, and you're still going to be trying to compensate for that in some way, whether it's some form of denial or avoidance. You're going to be doing something that's ultimately going to perpetuate that cycle, to continue that shame within you and the behaviors that are going to perpetuate it, to create more situations where you're going to feel shame. So do you want that cycle to continue, or would you like to face and process and release whatever shame you've carried up until the present moment? It's a choice that we all have to make. We can continue denial and avoidance, but we can also give ourselves permission to face things, to feel whatever we might have experienced, whether it's shame or any other emotions, and to go through whatever process we find useful that helps us release that feeling so that we don't have to hold on to it anymore. We can forgive ourselves and others. We can let go of attachment to the past, and we can have a more positive outlook, a sense of self-worth, a sense that we are here now to move forward in our life and create joy and fulfillment for ourselves, as well as having respect and compassion for others. I hope that this discussion has been valuable, has been useful for you and your personal growth. For those that are interested in holistic health and wellness, I invite you to visit my website, phinsights.com. That's phinsights.com. For now, I wish you a wonderful day. Namaste.